Hey, good morning. Hold on. Record video. We'll do the record video. All right. Good morning. This is Joe Soroselli, and we're with Aging Issues Radio. I'm sitting here with Bob Marone. All right. This is our second broadcast, and we're going to talk very specifically about an issue that a lot of individual families are running into. And there's something new that may be available, right? That may be available to everybody.
We like new.
We like new. Well, how many people realize that it is possible for a student, a young individual, it could be an old individual too, because unfortunately we have student loans sometimes even going into our 50s and 60s because we guaranteed a child student loan and now it's on us. So this is something that is an issue. There are a lot of people going into retirement that still have student loans. Some with their own student loans that never got repaid.
Did you say into retirement?
Into retirement.
Wow. How can you be 30 years later, they're still paying loans?
Unfortunately, the government changed, and all of a sudden, you can't get them discharged in bankruptcy. So
No,
they
I've
s-
seen that.
So they stick
Why?
around. Stick around.
Everything else can be discharged in bankruptcy. They take your car back. You can
Everything is available to be discharged in bankruptcy.
except
Right?
that.
Except that. And fortunately, what we're talking about is at one point there were abuses of the bankruptcy courts.
Mm-hmm.
People, I mean, I know individuals that abused the bankruptcy courts. I know individuals that have been declared bankruptcy multiple times. Everybody that knows somebody. I hate to say it, I'm an Italian, so I got somebody. Whatever else.
Yeah, sure.
Right. Unfortunately, I got somebody if you're having financial difficulties and you want to get rid of them. Bankruptcy is there for a reason. The reason for bankruptcy is to protect a person, give them an opportunity maybe to start over. But student loans stick around now because unfortunately it became a game at one point.
Can I ask you a question, Joe? How come no financial services firm has seen the opportunity here? Debt out there is an opportunity if you can repackage it.
This is we have on the national political agenda. We have programs that are saying we're going to make forgive all student loans. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's fair.
Well, I don't
number
think it's
one.
fair to forgive it, but what about repackaging it, making it more manageable, and
There are
maybe you
many-
increase
there
the
are-
interest rate?
No. There are many programs out there to repackage it. But what I was alluding to, before you asked the question was there was a period of time that individuals would go to the best school they could possibly get into. They couldn't afford it. They didn't get scholarships or anything of that nature, and finance their entire tuition, come out of school, get a job, earn a nominal wage, and then declare bankruptcy and go into the court and sit back and say, okay, here's how much money I earn. Here are my fixed expenses, my rent, my health insurance, so forth and so on, right? I just don't know how I'm going to ever be able to repay, my $250,000 of student loan debt. And unfortunately, the judge would sit back and say, okay, you make $30,000, you can afford to pay $100 a month, whatever the numbers may be.
Until you die.
Right? Or we can discharge the loans. And the loans were discharged. So it became an actual, plan.
Sure, it became a process to take on the debt and get and
and then
declare
have it
bankruptcy.
and then have it discharged. So, the government realized what was going on and they changed the law. And now student loan debt is, and I have to say, yes, I see a lot of articles and a lot of per se cases that we go through, and in some cases the student loans have been discharged, right? But they're extreme cases because the actual law says they're not supposed to be discharged. So now we go on to, all right, how do people repay their student loans? Now, I talked about student loans going into retirement. It happens because unfortunately, they've never had the opportunity to really prepay it in a good manner. Now, I've been doing retirement plans for 20 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
and historically, right, when I go into a retirement plan and they have and there's a different age brackets of individuals. I always try to tell when I'm talking to an owner or
Mm-hmm.
a trustee of a retirement plan. I say you really have to segment your audience and try to design a plan that fits for all people and provide education programs that allow you to address all of the different age segments that you have. Because, yes, there are aging issues, whether you are aging from a toddler to a teenager, from a teenager to an adult, and then the early stages of adult. We have issues. And one of the biggest issues that we have to address right now is student loans. Now, student loans, while they sometimes look like they're overbearing, there's new programs out there that make them more give the students or the younger employees an opportunity to pay off these loans and at the same time save for retirement. When I would walk into an organization or a plan and talk to participants and start talking about education, that the time value of money is very important. You need to start saving for retirement early on. And yes, retirement funds can be an emergency fund or anything else, and take advantage of if there is a match program in your 401k or if you're in your retirement program, take advantage of it, because if you pay off 5%, if you contribute 5% and the company matches 4%, you're actually putting away 9%. Well, recently there has been some adoptions to the plans that employers and mostly large employers now, but these plans can be brought down to smaller employers, allow an individual to take their salary deferrals, that first 5%, and apply it towards student loans, and then the company match, which can't go anywhere else, it goes into the program, will then stay in the retirement
Now,
program.
now who's do what? Have companies started doing this already? Are
Oh,
they doing
yes.
it to lure talent? Is that the purpose of it?
No, they're really, when you think about it, this is a program that was really designed to address a major issue out there. Because
Well,
unfortunately,
who's guaranteeing it?
when you say who's guaranteed, there's no guarantee.
Okay, it's not a federal program or
This
anything.
isn't a
For
federal
example,
program.
there are matching dollars in 401k. There's
Well,
matching volumes in dollars in healthcare programs.
these are
Who's doing this and why? Why would they?
we're talking about salary deferrals.
No, I understand,
No,
but
just
you also talked about matching
the
funds. Joseph.
matching funds are part of the program. The program, the 401k program, has a company match. Hopefully, not every program
Right.
does, right? But it has a company match. That match, right, has to go into the retirement program. But now what we've talked about, because of some of the new legislation and tax laws, the companies are allowing you to say, "Hey, we want you to pay off your student loan," because historically, when I would talk to a younger population, right, that has student loans, they say, "I can't afford to save for retirement. I'm tied up. I just got to pay off my student loans." You realize that now that I'm working and I'm making a decent amount of money, right? They're starting to call in these loans, and these loan payments can be anywhere from $500 on a low side to $1,500, $1,600 on a high side. Really, it's a factor of what you borrowed and what the interest rates are. You mentioned earlier, repackaging, reformatting. There are programs out there, but it always goes back to credit worthiness. Do you have a job? What's going on? So you need to you need to explore everything. You do need to, have a financial advisor or someone help you to repackage the loans and maybe see if you can reduce the interest rates and get your payments down. But at the same time you're doing that, it's still dollars that you have to set aside every week. Now, if I'm setting aside, let's use a simple student loan payment, $1,000. Okay? If I'm setting aside $250 a week to pay my student loan, do they have any money to set aside for their retirement?
Probably not. depending on how far along
And
they're in their career.
this is what's been going on for 20 and 30 years that I've been practicing. And you know, it's a very difficult thing to overcome because, you know, at one point, you know, you were able to get these student loans discharged. Now you can't. So they're going to sit with you for life. And you don't want to be applying for a bank, you know, for a mortgage or anything else. You want to have a good credit track record.
And, you know, something that I've advised some young people to do whom I know who've asked for that advice, fortunately, in those cases, they were far enough along to have a home. So my advice always has been the best thing for you to do is so you can at least write it off.
Take the equity out of the home.
But the problem is the typical person isn't in a position to do that. They don't have the very credit worthiness needed to do that.
This is what we're talking about. So these loans are going to stay with you. And this new program basically allowing, you know, part of your contribution to your 401k.
So it's tied in with the 401k.
It is part of the plan document. It's not something you can't just go to your boss right now, or you know, go talk to your boss and say, hey, I want part of my, you know, I want my contribution to my 401k to go to my student loans, and at the same time your match can stay in the 401k.
How do you know then if your company has that program?
Well, first you can ask. It's few and far between why I'm out here on a you know, soapbox preaching. I'm happy to talk to individuals, right, and say, all right, let's review the options that are in your 401k. Let's do the first part. I'm happy to talk to business owners or trustees that care about their younger employees and recognize that these student loans are going to be an issue for the rest of their life. Let's figure out how, you know, we can get them paid off. Sometimes, fortunately, individuals that have higher degree educations and did what they were supposed to do, a lot of times they're making a lot of money right now. So they have the opportunity maybe to do lump sums or pay off. And that's a smart move in many cases. Get these student loans off the books. Now, and this is, I try never to get political, but if there's a carrot hanging out there that's saying, I may never have to repay these student loans.
Oh, you're talking about some of the people on the left are proposing that.
Exactly. Yes. There's a carrot out there, right? Why would I want to turn around and repay loans that may be forgiven?
Although I would think as someone who does politics on this very station for a living, I don't think that's going to fly. I don't think they'll ever get the votes to do that because it would be a catastrophic debt to the country.
Oh, the country is the catastrophic debt to the country is one part of it. But personally, right, my children have had some student loans. They've repaid them or in the process of repaying them, right? Hell, you're going to forgive the next person down the road's loan.
Well, that's the problem that you run into.
I'm going to sue the hell out of this situation, right? And I'm not going to say, but half the time that when these student loans are out of whack.
And you're right. I paid for my daughter's undergrad and her grad schools. Yeah. I want my money back.
I want my money back. This is something that we have to look at. We have to be aware of. So, that carrot that's been hung out there, we both agree doesn't have a good chance of being, there. But, the other part, which is, unfortunately, and I'm not going to say the same thing, is it could lead to planning again if they just say, hey, for the right person who really can't afford to pay back these student loans, maybe we'll discharge them in bankruptcy. And that's what you get. That's why I said there have been cases where I'll say, different judges have allowed you to turn around or have discharged student loans. And in some cases I have to say, they're abusive.
You're listening to Aging Issues Radio starring Joe Soroselli. He is the principal of Aging Issues Management. They're located right here in New Rochelle. Coincidentally or not, right across the street from the Social Security office.
Never.
Continue, Joe.
All right. This half hour that I really wanted to focus on is the issue of student loans. that issue affects multiple ages. It affects, it affects parents who are, in quotes, doing estate planning and saying, "Hey, I'm going to pay off my daughter's student loan or
That's
my
a great
child."
idea.
Oh no, this is a, as I said, I've been doing this a very long time. Uh, Even in my children's cases, I always said I will help you with your student loans. They weren't significant. I paid good amount of money, got some scholarships, did everything else. But I'm Italian. I like people to have skin in the game.
Hmm.
It's something that we always talk about. Is if you have some skin in the game, you take it seriously. Because I have sat back with clients that their children, did 4 years of college on student loans, and have come out of school and are not really utilizing their liberal arts degree to any efficiency, and have these big student loans that in many cases the parents have signed off on.
Mm.
I don't ask, and sometimes it's the only option that's available if you want that person to go to school and you have confidence, and believe me, I have confidence in all my kids, right? But at the same point, they have to realize that those plus loans are loans that you own also. So when we talked about people going into retirement with student debt,
Hmm.
in many cases it's the plus loans. It's where they signed on top of. But it was the only
Hmm.
way. It was the only
It was
way
the only way to do it. They needed the cosigner.
they needed the cosigner.
Yeah.
So it's on your credit report. It's there. And unfortunately, it can. I mean, there can be horror stories, that pensions are leaned, so forth and so on. Once you have a stable income, and you have aggressive lenders, things happen. So what I'm really trying to drive home right now is there is an opportunity for a plan administrator, a plan trustee, right, to possibly put in place a program within their retirement system, and I'm going to say within their retirement program, but it would have to likely be a new document. Some documents may be amended, but in simple English, there is a trust. Whether or not you know it or not, when you have a retirement plan, that is a trust. There is money is being set aside outside of the company for your retirement. So they are safe. If the company goes under, those monies are outside, they're perfectly safe. That is the traditional 401k trust. So you have a pension trust. On top of that trust, there are administrators, and there's a plan document that dictates what goes on within that
So,
trust.
so Joe, as your canary in the cave, I ask you, let's say I had $150,000 in debt right now, and I'm listening to you. What do I do?
Well, one of the options, you may or may not be servicing the debt. I'm hoping that you are servicing the debt. But this may be an opportunity for you to start to service the debt through a program. And again, every plan and every plan administrator has budgets. We all know that people have 401ks that have no matches and so forth. But if I can put away some money on a pre-tax basis and have it applied to my student loan, and as I said, these are very specific programs. They are not generic, right? There are what they call private letter rulings on certain plan documents that allow this to take place. But it's a win-win for all.
Mm-hmm.
All the government really is doing is foregoing the taxes on this amount of loan repayment that eventually they may, have had to suffer, a full write-off at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a smart move for the government to do this. We're not playing with, we're not doing things that, shouldn't be done. Could there, again, be abuses in the system? It goes back to how the document is written and who's administering it. And that's why you need professionals. You need people that are familiar with this, that have your best interest at heart. There's an entire law coming out effective January of 2020 that all that talks about is, with the SEC and the NESD, is your best interest. And the plans have to be in your best interest. And there has to be documentation. There has to be reasons for doing things. And when you look at this particular issue and address it the way I want you to address it right now, if a employer that has a plan, a retirement plan, and wants to put in place this potential student loan repayment option, call me. I'll walk you through the process.
Has it always been thus, Joe?
Has it always been?
Funny, when I was young, I don't remember these huge student debts, or is that because college has gotten so expensive?
College has gotten so expensive, but here's where and and I'm not getting political or anything else, but you see a lot of ads for trade schools now,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there were a lot of people that went to college that incurred debt that never used their college education. In quotes, it was the college experience.
Mm-hmm.
We are, similar age, but you got me by a few. Right? You got me by a few. But college wasn't a rite of passage.
No, it was not then at all.
And all we're talking about is in the 70s. It wasn't a rite of passage.
In the '60s, you didn't need it to get a good job. Quite frankly,
You needed a
the
high school degree.
meritocracies were the
That's
the
where
way they did.
GEDs became so popular
Yeah.
and so forth because you just had to have a high school degree to get certain degrees. I can say this, which is really a little ludicrous, and this
Three
is
chairmans of Merrill Lynch ago, the guy didn't go to college,
yeah.
and that's only we're talking into the year 2000.
I'm not. I'm
I
just
see
saying.
your point.
Unfortunately, a lot of people go to college. They have a great experience. I talk to people that their kids are on the 6-year program, right? I actually had a person that I knew that I went to school with that statistically could not graduate from the school he was attending. And they were like, everybody asked me, how did that happen? I said, a hell of a lot of D's and F's, right? And he would have needed 2 more semesters of straight A's to get his cum up to the level that would allow him to graduate. And he was on a 6-year program. He had I have to tell you, he was, I'm not going to say my idol, but he was enjoying college more than I was because I was going to class and I was I had skin in the game, right? That I knew I had to get a degree and get a job. But even, at that time in my life, it was giving me options. And when I first graduated from college, before I got my MBA, right, I was working as a civil servant for the New York City Parks Department. And then I made a decision to utilize my education and go into the financial services industry. But I could have probably out of high school gone and worked for the New York City Department of Parks and had a very good career through there.
I don't know about that.
Oh, no.
Well, you would have had a good career from the standpoint of money and
No, security.
pension, security,
Security, so forth.
But municipal governments, particularly in New York City, are so poorly run.
It was a period of time.
You wind up strangling yourself, pulling your hair
No,
out.
I'm gonna say my major motive, my major factor was if you dating myself, it was the period of time that unfortunately the city was threatening bankruptcy and the government had to come in to help. So my pension plan was going to dramatically change, and I would have had to work to age 65 and gotten much less. And it was like, okay, time to go out and look for a financial services job or a different job than what I was doing. So what I'm bringing out is there are issues all throughout your career. So Joe Soroselli, the young Joe Soroselli, gave himself options, went to school, and was working for a civil service position that I had options, right? But I did have some student loans. Right? They weren't significant because I was a commuter. I didn't go away to school.
No, I commuted as well.
This was the norm, right? And I even get, when I do college planning for individuals, everybody talks to me about how, we're getting 50% of the tuition back through grants, through this, that, and it's only going to cost us $30,000 a year. We're getting $10,000 in grants or financial aid, and it's not always sometimes it's financial aid, which includes loans. I always tell people separate it. That's one to figure out.
Financial aid, it could be a loan.
It's financial aid,
It's
but
not aid
it's
in the
not
classic
there.
sense.
Find out what your scholarships are, what your grants are. On that side, that's where you start, and that's money that the school is inviting you to come, to school and wants you to be participating in their programs. And then, when you go to the financial aid office and they say, well, you'll be eligible for $25,000 in student loans based upon this, that's got to be repaid. And that's where a lot of this came up, because I'll do anything for my children. A lot of people will, right? I fortunately was able to have the discussion with my children that here's what we can afford. Here's what's going to be at the end. It's not overwhelming, right? But sometimes you have to look at what is actually being spent on the education, and then what you're going to use with the education. But this goes back to, again, let's drive back home. We're right where we want to be, about a half hour, right? This program today is nothing more than making people aware that there are options for student loan repayment that were not available over the last years.
Can you help them find this?
That's the key. Whether or not you are the person with the loan and you're working for an organization that has a retirement program, it could be a direction. You can direct me to the person who manages the retirement program, and I will try to educate them on this potential availability of the program. I'm not going to say it's going to happen, right? If you have or control a retirement, you're a trustee or a business owner, get in touch with me, especially if you have younger people with student loans. Now, if you are working for, a Fortune 500 company, we still can help. This is, even though we're a local office a small local office in Westchester County, right? My affiliate F2 Financial, Flynn Financial, we control well over $1 billion of pension assets. And we administer, or help administer and consult to approximately 50 plans, right, nationwide. So it's not something that we can't do. See, reality is a lot of pension plans, right, and the administration of those pension plans has become commoditized. Technology has pushed us along. Everybody knows that you can log in and you can do a basic financial plan on your 401k website. You may have questions, and that's when you reach out to the advisor who is helping administer that program, right? The fees and services, they've come down. There's no big markup like there used to be for that. And unfortunately, in some cases where people haven't looked at their plans in a number of years, they're paying way too much for the plans, and those expenses come right out of each individual's accounts. So even you as an individual, if you look at your statement and say, "Hold on, where are all these expenses coming from, and how come they're so high?" Right? Speak up, ask. There's no set number because it's what are you getting for those expenses, but at the same time, it's always a good idea to as a participant sometimes ask, what am I paying for, and then as a owner or a trustee, ask the advisor, what's your added value? As far as F2 Financial and Aging Issues Info, our added value is education on the issues that we face as we age. I've talked about the issues of, let's say, 30 to 35-year-olds, student loans. Sometimes they affect the baby boomers or the pre-retirees because they still have student loans. Mm-hmm. But the next time we get together at Aging Issues Radio, we're going to talk more in detail about the other end of the spectrum. When you get ready to retire, what should you be looking at? And this is what we add the value to, right, for the plan trustees, the owners. We don't just go out and say we want to talk about financial wellness. Financial wellness is what you hear on TV. It's everything else. It's making sure that you're starting to save enough money so that you can retire. But there are issues during that period of time that you have to be educated on and make decisions. Listen, Bob, I thank you so much for the opportunity to sit with you. You've always been a great co-host with me.
Well, it's always interesting. I learn something every week when you come in here, Joseph. I had no idea that any of this was possible, and knowing so many people and interns and people who come in here with college debt. How do they get a hold of you?
You can reach me at 914 468 0186. That is a direct line.
Give it out again.
Again, 914 468 0186. And of course, if you Google, look at Facebook, Joe Soricelli is around. I do have a namesake, but he's retired now. For a number of years, we used to conflict.
Oh, is that right? I did not know. Was he a financial services guy?
No, he was actually, he has patents for technology. Right? Yeah. He's probably about, I would say he's probably about 15 years older, and no relation.
Well, that happens. If you Google me, there's a priest with my name. Imagine that.
I can't imagine.
No,
Again, Joe
Folks,
Soricelli, I thank you so much.
Let me put a wrap on this for you. You've been listening to Aging Issues Radio here on Radio Westchester. Joe Soricelli is the principal, the main guy at Aging Issues Management, located right here in New Rochelle. He is as good as it gets. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.